Hello, it's Sonia here, The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday. So I am going to be using my eye hook or 5.5mm hook. I just have a rubber band at the end to keep my stitches on. And we are going to be doing a stitch pattern. I actually was perusing Pinterest and saw this on there, and I was like, wow, that's really pretty. So I thought I would share it with you. So here we go. So I already have my chain started. So what you're going to want to do for this particular stitch pattern is chain a multiple of 7. So I have 28 chains here. So for row 1, that will be the setup row. So we're going to work in the back bump of the chains. I'm going to turn it over, and then in my second bump from my hook, I'm just pulling up a loop. And I'm going to continue to pull up loops all the way across, so I will have 28 loops on my hook. And row 1 is the setup row. And if you've never done Tunisian crochet before, I do have a complete playlist that goes over the basics plus other stitch tutorials and patterns on there. And Tunisian crochet is always worked in 2 parts. So the first part, you are putting the stitches on your hook like we're doing right now. And the second part of the row, we are taking the stitches off. So they're often called the forward pass. So this would be the forward pass. And then when you take the stitches off, it's often called the return pass. So I'm going to keep putting my loops on my hook, and I will meet you back. Okay, so I have my 28 loops on my hook. So let's work the return pass. So to do that, we are going to yarn over, pull through 1 stitch, and then yarn over and pull through 2 for the rest of the row, and then row 1 will be complete. Now this stitch pattern is a 1 row repeat, but we do have to work 2 rows. Those are kind of our foundation rows until we're ready to do the actual repeat. So here we go, we've got row 1 all done. So let's begin row 2. So again, this will be another setup row. So what we're going to do is we're going to work 5 purl stitches in the next 5 vertical bars there. So I'm going to have my yarn in front. And if you've never worked a purl stitch, I do have that in the playlist. So in that first vertical bar, we're going to work a purl stitch. So that's our first one. We want to work 5. Okay, so we have our 5 purl stitches. So we're going to be working a cluster stitch in between these next 2 vertical bars. So here's the first one there, here's the second one. So we're going to do a yarn over, and we're going to go in between. So with Tunisian crochet, it actually is, there's like a chain that runs through the stitches. So if you kind of spread it apart, you can kind of see there's one part of the chain. We are actually going to be putting our hook underneath that. So again, here's the first vertical bar, the second one, we're going to put our hook underneath. And we've got our yarn over, we're going to pull up a loop. So we have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to keep doing this till we have 8 loops. So yarn over, right back under there, pull up a loop. There's 4 loops on our hook. We now have 6. Yarn over, go right back under. Now we have 8 loops on our hook. So we're going to skip this next vertical bar here, and we're going to work in the next one. We're going to work the 5 Tunisian purl stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here is stitch 5. So now we're going to work that cluster again. So here are those next 2 vertical bars. Just trying to spread it apart so you can see it a little better. So there's the first one, there's the second one, and there's that chain, we're going to work underneath of it. So we're going to yarn over, going underneath in that space and pulling up a loop. And we're going to keep repeating that till we have 8 loops on our hook. So there we go. We have our 8 loops, and now we're going to purl again. So we're just repeating across. So we're going to skip this vertical bar. It's the one we worked in between. We're going in the next one. And then we'll work the 5 purl stitches. Okay, and now we're going to work that cluster again. So in between the next 2 bars, in that space. And now we're going to finish out the row here. So we're going to work, we're skipping this one here, and we're going to work in the next 5 stitches, working our purl stitches. Okay, and we have 1 stitch left at the end, so it kind of looks like a chain on the end, and we're going to insert our hook in that chain. Let's see, it's got a little messed up looking. There we go. And we're going to pull up a loop. And there is our forward pass of row 2. So to do this, we're going to yarn over, pull through 1. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're to the cluster. So we're going to yarn over and pull through all of these loops. So it's actually 9 loops. So we're going to yarn over, pull through this one here, and all of those loops, which consists of the cluster. Hopefully nothing will stick. There we go. And now we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 5 times. And now we're back to the cluster, so we're going to do that. See, this yarn's a little splitty. I think it's Caron Simply Soft. So we're going to power through it. So we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 5 times. Oh, it's split on me. All right, can we do it? There we go. I think it'll look pretty, the stitch pattern with this yarn, but it might not have been the best choice because it does like to split. And what that means is yarn that, like yarn, you can see it's like twisted. So if the twist is a little bit looser, it can kind of do that, and then your hook can catch one of those strands like that. So that's what we mean by splitting. And some people get really upset about it. I mean, it can be annoying, but it's not the worst thing that could happen, you know? All right, so let's yarn over and pull through all 9 of those loops. Okay, and we're going to yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row to complete the row. So I think with this stitch pattern, it looks better if you do work with more stitches. So it might be, I think this would actually make a really pretty blanket or maybe a scarf, you know, something with a lot more stitches so you can really see the stitch pattern. All right, so now we're going to work row 3, which is going to be the repeat for this stitch pattern. So rows 1 and 2, they were our setup rows, and stitch 3 is the repeat. So our first 5 stitches we're working purl stitches. So every purl stitch that we've worked, we're going to work another purl stitch right on top of it. All right, so we have our 5 purl stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to work next to this cluster. So we're not working, I mean, we could work on top of it here, but we're not. We're going to work in the space next to it right here. And it's going to give you kind of like a faux cable effect. It's really neat looking. So to do that, we're going to do our yarn over. So right in that space right there, you're going to insert your hook, pull up a loop, and keep doing that till we have 8 loops. All right, so there we go. And now we're going to purl in those purl stitches. So the first one might get covered up a little bit, but remember you want to have 5 purl stitches in between your puff stitches or cluster stitch. Alright, so we've got our 5 purl, and now we're going back to that cluster. So we're just working next to it in that space. So yarn over and pull up our loop until we have 8. There we go, we have 8, and now we go back and work our 5 purl stitches. So there we go, and we're going to continue right next to it. And then we'll finish up the row working the 5 purls, and then we have to work in that very last stitch. Okay, and so see that chain there, insert your hook in there, pull up your loop. Okay, so now we need to work these guys off. So yarn over, pull through 1 for the first, yarn over, pull through 2, 5 times. And now we're going to pull through 9 loops. And yarn over, pull through 2, 5 times. And there we go. We have worked row 3. So what you're going to do is repeat row 3 for however long you want your swatch, and then we'll do the bind off row. So I'm going to go work a bunch more rows, and I will meet you back. Alright, so I ended up working 13 rows, so you can see it kind of looks like a cable in a way. It's twisted. I think it's a really neat stitch. It's pretty easy to do, and as I said before, I think it would make a really nice like blanket or a scarf, something like that. And so now we need to bind off our stitches. So we are going to bind off in pattern pretty much. So our first stitch we're going to bind off in purl. And again, you just want to make sure when you're binding off that you're not having too tight of tension, because it will, affect the look of your project. So we are just binding off. It's basically like a slip stitch. All right, so now we've come to the puff or the cluster stitch here. So as you can see, there's like a loop right on top there. So I just like to insert my hook in there and work that bind off. And I do that one like kind of on the looser side, and then we're just going to continue across. Just making sure our tension is nice and relaxed. And the nice thing with this particular stitch pattern is it lays flat, as you can tell, because a lot of Tunisian tends to curl, but this one does not, and purl stitches really do help with curling. So if you are making a Tunisian project with like Tunisian simple stitch or the knit stitch, which they like to curl, add some purl stitches and that can help with the curling. Okay, so we are at the end here. We're going to work in that chain and bind off. Binding off just gives it a little bit more of a finished look. So as you can see, it lays very nice and flat, which is good. And there we go. Again, I think it's a really neat stitch. I just think it's kind of, it just gives like a nice twisted look there. I think it's fun. I really enjoy it. And it's not too hard to do. And I did think it works up fairly quickly as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.